Now we stay in Europe. The resignation of French Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu has made headlines all over the globe. This is significant as the second largest economy in the Eurozone faces a political crisis. Media from across the world has covered the news as Sébastien Lecornu was the fifth Prime Minister in only 2 years to resign under current President Emmanuel Macron. Some outlets focused on the French political crisis, while others highlighted the growing pressure on President Macron to resign. Let's see how major media outlets have covered this news. The BBC has commented on the revolving door of the prime ministerial position, calling it another resignation. TASS has reported on Lecornu stepping down following the announcement of the cabinet reshuffle. And France has discussed the abrupt resignation, leaving President Macron with few options. Now we move on to our guest discussion with Alexander Seal. Thank you very much, Alexander, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, Alexander, since the last time we've talked just yesterday, what more has changed, and is there hope for the current government to keep the coalition?
Well, President Macron has given Sébastien Lecornu, who's effectively in a caretaker mode after offering his resignation yesterday, a deadline until Wednesday evening to find an agreement with all parties to stabilize future government. It's really a final attempt to rebuild a working majority after days of chaos. But for now, France remains in political limbo. It's a way of Macron to keep the control of the timetable. He wants to show that the Élysée Palace still decides the events, not his rivals or the opposition. But it's also a sign of weakness. A president is forced to manage his own majority like a mediator rather than a leader.
And now, given the rapid succession of Prime Minister's resignation under current President Macron, how do you think this ongoing political instability is affecting France's international standing and credibility even within EU?
Well, first of all, Lecornu is trying to rebuild what he calls the socle commun, the core alliance of centrist and moderate MPs, deputies, to ensure the budget can pass and avoid total paralysis. He's also trying to reassure overseas territories like New Caledonia, which remain volatile. So in short, it's crisis management, not reform, just survival. And you mentioned the international press. Foreign outlets are treating it as a slow motion collapse of Macronism. The Guardian, for example, speaks of a deep political crisis, while other medias call it the clowns of Europe. So the global perception is that the French presidency, once a symbol of power, is now completely paralyzed. So France is effectively suspended between two worlds. A president who's still in office and will remain in power until 2027, but the power is slipping away. Macron's deadline to Lecornu is less a plan than a pause button, a few days grace before the next political explosion.
And with the resignation of him, do you think this signals a deeper crisis within President Macron's leadership, or is it more reflective of the broader challenges in governing a nation during turbulent times?
Well, lots of Macron's allies are a bit skeptical. Yes, last night on French TV, Gabriel Attal, the former French prime minister, he criticized Emmanuel Macron. He said he doesn't really understand the French president. And the former French prime minister, Edouard Philippe, who wants to be a candidate in 2027, said there should be, Macron has to step down. So Lecornu's mediation looks almost impossible. The parliamentary arithmetic simply doesn't work anymore. So opposition parties like the left are demanding Macron to name a left-wing prime minister. So Emmanuel Macron has several options. He can either name another prime minister, but the future prime minister might be censored. He could name a left-wing prime minister, or he could call snap elections. He called snap elections last year, But the far-right party, they won the first round, and the left-wing party, the far-left party, won the second round. So Macron should name a left-wing prime minister to respect the votes of the people.
Lastly, Alexander, how are French media outlets covering or framing this political crisis? And do you think their coverage has influenced public perception?
I don't think so. I think each TV channel, there are four rolling news channels in France. They're covering this crisis. It's a historic moment that a French prime minister who was in office for 27 days resigned, and a government who was in place just for a night, and the next day Lecornu had to resign. So really, French channels are covering it in different ways, different political outcomes, and French people are just are really bored. They want a change in policy, but Macron has to speak to the people. I think he has to give a TV interview for people to be reassured.
Right, we will be looking into that. Thank you very much, Alexander Seal, for joining us and sharing that insight. Now we move on and we stay in Asia. Russia has urged the eradication of terrorism in Afghanistan to ensure its territory is not used to threaten the security of neighboring countries and others outside the region. Following the 7th round of Moscow consultations on Afghanistan, Russia's foreign ministry has called for stronger counter-terrorism cooperation at both bilateral and multilateral levels. The participants emphasized the importance of supporting Afghanistan in taking comprehensive measures to eradicate terrorism. The ministry also reaffirmed support for Afghanistan to become an independent, peaceful state free of terrorism and narcotics. They have expressed willingness to assist Kabul in strengthening regional security and called for international humanitarian aid that should remain politically neutral. This is all we have time for. We will continue to bring you more news updates from around the world.